We cannot and should not give this issue short shrift because it is a key to what is happening in America right now. The ratcheting rhetoric and fact about the Muslim religion, a faith that many point to as nothing more than one founded on death, destruction, the subjugation of women, and the need, not just the desire, but the alleged stated desire, the need to make their faith the only one on the face of the earth. It's all been out there. When nightmares such as what happened in Orlando this past week occur, we are bombarded with rhetoric from those who insist the only logical place to start is stopping every person proclaiming to be a Muslim from entering America. We don't know for how long, but let's at least get started somewhere. Let the chips begin to fall in what we hope will be the right direction. That is countered by those who insist we fall back on the words of a former president who was there when a good number of Americans were seeing what they believed was the light, that we should automatically equate Muslims with terrorism and the desire to kill everyone who did not follow their faith.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful, and those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah. The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends.
There are 49 dead Americans at this moment waiting to be sent to their final resting place, all thanks to one individual whom initial evidence tells us had a bend towards killing for a group that follows a warped version of their holy book, even though there was not one shred of provable evidence to this point that he actually believed any of it. We're not back in dangerous territory. We've never left it since the days before President Bush made that statement. And America's once again being charged with making a decision about Muslims, the Muslim faith, and where we draw the line dividing irrational fear from actual murderous bend. And making that decision will go a long way in fighting the war. Indeed, the war we have been in for a good part of our recent lifetimes. Your phone calls are part of this if you'd like to join us. 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. You get on the line now. We want to hear from our audience. Our guest is a member of Barack Obama's United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, also founder and president of the Arab American Institute. Welcome James Zogby to the Hardline. James, thanks so much for joining us. Let me get right to a point here. There is a feeling here that this individual in Orlando was indeed either alleged to be part of ISIS, he was somebody who was bent by ISIS, he got the internet, he learned about it, whatever the case may be. Is it not fair to say that for ISIS, for ISIL, for Daesh, whatever you want to call them, it's all the same? As long as you have somebody out there just throwing their message out there, they don't care if he or she really believed. They love the fact that there's an acolyte out there basically espousing their message.
Well, I think that this is a question that we're going to know more about in the days to come. But what is appearing to me right now from a lot of what I've seen and read is that more likely this is somebody who had a homosexual, if you will, inclination that he attempted to deny and that finally exploded in his own inability to deal with himself and his own reality. He was a violent individual. He did frequent that particular nightclub. People weren't sure what his sexual inclinations were, but I think he himself was torn by it. And people who find it so repulsive usually are masking an insecurity about themselves. And so I think this is part of what was going on here. His last-minute claim to be doing ISIS's work is more like the sort of ultimate screw you. It was a kind of putting an exclamation point on an absolutely horrific outrage that manifested all of this internal boiling over that took the shape of this horrific massacre. I don't see this as a plot led from overseas at all, or inspired by anything overseas. ISIS is an evil, condemnable group. I think he latched onto it to kind of give some kind of justification, whereas what he probably was saying is, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I'm about, I hate what I might think I might be, and therefore I'm going to kill these people to deny me who I really am.
You have a tremendous amount of experience here. So in your opinion, the people who look at this and who from the first moment and to right this second as we speak, calling it
it's not ISIS-led, and whether it's ISIS-inspired or not doesn't matter. The fact is he would have found some way, depending upon the era in which we live. Today, the way you put an exclamation point on an act of evil is you say Islam. That's what he did. I don't think this is a devout Muslim. This is not a guy who was inspired by any teaching of Islam. This is a wretched, torn individual who acted out his own internal conflict with an act of horrific violence. ISIS, in this case, got used. This is not to defend ISIS. They are an absolutely condemnable organization. And the sickness of that group is that they would be willing to latch onto it and say, yes, we claim it. It creates chaos in America.
James, let me stop you there because
act.
you said something in this. You talked about ISIS being used. Does this not, for one of the few times, really open up this can of worms here? We've got to be careful. As I said, we know that there are people out there who want to kill us. We know there are people out there plotting at this very moment. We know that they are sitting there. But we've got to be cautious. We can't just throw everything under the ISIS bus and expect it all to come out exactly as what we want, because that doesn't help the issue. Let's not make them bigger than they are. Say that again, please.
That's the issue. The issue is, let's not make them bigger than they are. Let's not pretend that this is a threat to America, an existential threat to America on the level of, for example, the Soviet Union was, or that Nazism was. This is a group of hardened killers. It's a gang. It's a gang that is ruling a couple of desert, quote-unquote, kingdoms. They call it a caliphate. There's no believing Muslim who really adheres to that. They rule by terror, not unlike the Mexican drug cartels on the border. And they use violence in order to kind of give emphasis to their leadership and to force people to cower. And for those who are alienated in the world, in France or living in the ghettos of places in Europe where they feel alienated and frustrated, they look at this group using that kind of violence and they say, man, I want to be with the cool guys. Look at the way they're striking out. And so they identify with that group. And so there's this flood of people, alienated, angry, frustrated, unemployed, European kids who are flooding to the group, and a couple of people in America as well who want to identify with it out of their anger. Not unlike the way a generation ago, or a couple generations ago, I'm dating myself right now, people would become Maoist, or people would identify with some kind of Che Guevara or something to give themselves a sense of, I'm striking out at the man, and I'm identifying with this alien culture that America hates. People are doing that with Islam. A lot of the acts of violence actually that occur, or a lot of the people who get arrested, are converts to Islam. They're not really Muslims as much as they're angry at America and they want to find a way to express that anger by identifying with Islam. They're abusing the religion of Islam. George W. Bush was right. We need more of George W. Bush and a lot less of Donald Trump right now.
I want you to just hear something very briefly. I only have a few seconds. Here's Paul Ryan today talking about his message to the people in his party about what has happened.
Let's remember, we're all in this together. You know, we're not LGBT Americans, Republican Americans, Democrat Americans, Muslim Americans. We're Americans. And as Americans, we need to up our game to deal with and confront this real threat.
James, I only got 10 seconds. Your reaction to that comment?
Dump Trump and put Paul Ryan instead. The Republicans need to save their party from this horror.
James Zogby, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
1-877-Newsmax if you'd like to join us. Let's get a couple of calls in here. We only have about 90 seconds. Jeff in Key Largo, Florida. Jeff, I got about 20 seconds. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, I certainly disagree with the other caller that George Bush Jr. had 8 years to do something about the borders. But he said, well, they're here doing the work the American people don't want to do. So I disagree with him, and I think Donald Trump makes a stand, and people need to be concerned about their safety. Listen, the guy that came, who's the leader over there in Iran? He spoke in front of the UN, and one of the actually it was one of the
okay, Jeff, make your point real quickly. 10 seconds.
NBC newscaster asked him the question, well, what about your homosexuals over there? And he answered, well, we don't have them. You see, they don't believe in that. Homosexuality
Okay,
doesn't-
Jeff, we appreciate it. I'm sorry, but we're all out of time with you. Marty in Topeka, Kansas. Marty, I have 30 seconds. Stay on point. Go with it.
Yeah, it's Mark.
Okay, Mark,
And,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You got 30 seconds, Mark. Go ahead.
Like I said, it started with Clinton, Bush, and all of them. They've let too many Muslims in this country, the mosque, and everything. It's just got out of hand.
All
and
right,
we need to listen to Trump about
All right,
temporary ban. It's a temporary. It's not permanent.
You're in favor of the temporary ban then. I got you. Mark, thank you so much. Gentlemen, we're sorry about the time, but important stuff that's being said here. We will be taking more of your viewer phone calls later in the show, so please stay with us. Get online now. We got a lot of questions to ask. The Political Animal's up next, digging its teeth into the matter of verbiage and the issue about gun control no one seems really willing to talk about. 1-877-NEWSMAX. Get on the line. We'll get to you right here on the Hard Line.